Today on Florida Sportsman Best Boat, we're going to look at the fastest growing segment of the saltwater boat market, bay boats, in the 24-foot to 27-foot class. Increased range, performance, and capacity best describe bay boats in the upper end of the class. The extra deck space enables several anglers to fish without feeling crowded, and when it's time to take the family out, you have enough room for the whole clan. Bay boats this size can float in less than a foot of water, yet provide the sea-keeping ability for some offshore fishing as well. Some key features to look for in this class of bay boats are a large bow casting deck with enough room for multiple anglers. Range is important if you're heading far into the backcountry or beyond the horizon offshore. A shallow draft is essential when wanting to fish the skinny waters of the flats. To fish a shoreline, you need a bow-mounted trolling motor. A bay boat should have a flat mounting area and be pre-wired with a plug. Aerated bait wells are essential if you want to fish with live bait. Stern seating is a comfortable place for your passengers to sit in rough conditions or for a long run. Rod lockers not only protect your gear but double as additional dry storage. Comfortable helm seating allows you to fish longer with less fatigue at the end of the day. If you plan on entering any tournaments in fresh or salt water, a large release well will be necessary to keep your winning catch alive for weigh-in. Join our hosts Dave East and Rick Riles as they feature 6 boats in a 2-part series that can fish the flats for a tailing redfish, battle a tarpon at the inlet, or troll a weed line for dolphin, plus take the family to the sandbar. They are the Triton 260 with an overall length of 25 feet 5 inches, a beam of 8 feet 6 inches, and max horsepower rating of 350. Ranger 2510 with an overall length of 24 feet 7 inches, a beam of 8 feet 6 inches, and a max horsepower rating of 300. And the Blue Wave 2400 Pure Bay with an overall length of 24 feet 5 inches, a beam of 8 feet 6 inches, and a max horsepower rating of 300.
Welcome to this episode of Best Boat. I'm Dave East, boating editor of Florida Sportsman magazine.
And I'm Rick Riles, program director of Florida Sportsman Radio.
You know, one of the largest growing segments of the saltwater boat market is the bay boat industry. This industry has exploded in recent years. So what we had to do this season of Best Boat is we've actually going to bring you the bay boats in 2 different episodes. Rather than only feature 3 of them, we're going to feature 6. So hopefully we can show you the whole gamut of what's out there.
Well, everybody's doing it, Dave, and there's got to be a reason. The bay boats are so functional in terms of what they can do both inshore and offshore. And they started around 18 feet. Now they've exploded all the way up to 26, 27 feet. It's fantastic how many different things you can do in a bay boat.
Well, you really can, and really, I think the industry is exploding from 2 different areas. You've got what we had talked about before. You've got the smaller guys, the flats boat guys, that are moving up into a bay boat because they're just tired of the flats boat that just can't get them across that rough bay. And then you have the offshore guys that you're most familiar with that are moving down in size because they don't want the expense of an offshore boat anymore.
You're right, and they almost come from 2 different places. If you look at the 18s, an 18 fisherman may go to a bay boat because he wants to fish a flat, then he wants to cross Galveston Bay or a big body of water, and he wants to fish another flat. The other boats, when we get up into the bigger 24 and 26 foot boats, a lot of these guys are going to spend an awful lot of time offshore, but they can't resist that opportunity to pick off a snook among the mangroves on the way home.
Well, the 3 boats that we brought today, we have a 24, we have a 25, and we have a 26. And I think what they represent is they can get you offshore. Obviously, they're not going to do what a 26-foot deep V, offshore boat would do in really, really rough conditions. But it can get you offshore on most days that you want to go. But where they really shine over a deep V offshore boat is they can get in much, much skinnier water.
And let me tell you something. Be careful about saying they can't do what the big offshore boats can do. Once you get up into the range we're looking at today, you are really looking at offshore boats that can do some inshore fishing. The smaller bay boats are inshore boats that you can take out the inlet on a nice day. Well, you better be careful talking about what they can't do because there's not very much these boats can't do. We spent time going through all of them today. We've already learned that different ones shine in different areas, so pay attention because one of these boats is going to shine in an area that's important to you.
Don't go away. We'll be right back with more Florida Sportsman Best Boat. This segment brought to you by Armstrong, celebrating 25 years of creativity and innovation.
Do you have the Armstrong advantage? In its most basic form, an Armstrong outboard bracket improves the efficiency of your outboard motor. This equates to a faster time to plane and higher top speeds. The list of advantages continue with improved maneuverability, added space, and a quieter ride. Adding a swim platform accompanied by an Armstrong boarding ladder will certainly add to your day out on the water. Isn't it time for you to gain the Armstrong advantage?
Welcome back to Florida Sportsman Best Boat. This week we're featuring bay boats in the 24-foot to 27-foot class.
All right, a new boat added to the Triton lineup is the 260 LTS Pro. She measures 25 feet 5 inches long, and it's got a completely reconfigured hull. You're gonna love this new boat.
Starts with a Carolina flare. Okay, they took that turn down type bow to it to where it actually turns the water away from you, helps keep you drier. I rode in this one this morning. It rides like a champ.
Another thing they did is they got back to their roots. You know, they started really heavy in the bass boat industry. This boat has a pad. You don't normally see that on the bottom of a bay boat, but they did that to get that increased performance. All right, Rick, you know what? Before we get off of this dance floor size bow casting platform, you're standing on 624 quarts of fish box.
That's a lot. That's my size fish box.
Well, you don't normally see a bay boat with that much fish capacity in a fish box, so even use it for dry storage or whatever, it's a great use of this big deck.
Well, you're right. And let me tell you something else they incorporated. They put the steps in that you need. Let me tell you what, us old guys coming up and down from this way 50, 60 times a day is difficult. This step is vital to comfortably come on and off your casting platform.
Well, another thing I see, and this probably goes back to their bass boat heritage, they've got 2 rod lockers. So you can put all of your rods underneath the deck. They're locked, they're out of the way. If you need them, you can get to them. That's normally something that came out of the bass boat industry. You don't really see that on the bay boats, but I love it on this front deck. All right, along with retooling the hull, they also retooled this console, which I love. It's got a toe kick, so as you walk past, you don't kick it, and they increase the number of rod holders from 8 to 10 on the sides where you can just grab them when you're ready to go. Their seats are really nice. You can either stand comfortably or you can sit. This racing bolster, you normally only see this on the big offshore boats, but they carried that design over to a bay boat. It's really nice. It's comfortable, especially if you're going to make a long run. This particular boat has actually been in the islands. That's a long run for a 26-foot bay boat.
That's the only thing you ever taught me, was the advantage of seating in a bass boat. That's where the great seats came from. And you're right, making the original rocket launchers, whereas they were functional, they really weren't very comfortable. The new generation, the ones that are evolving now, are like sitting in your rocking chair at home.
To find a 25-foot boat that can get better than 4 miles to the gallon, it's going to have to be a bay boat. If you get into a big center console, a big deep V, you're not going to see that kind of fuel mileage.
Oh, that's why you see guys even that don't want to inshore fish. You see offshore guys, because of the limits, you don't take home as many fish as you have to. Some of those guys are having a hard time justifying running twin engines on 30 feet of boat to go out and catch, say, 5 sea bass, 5 vermilion snapper, and 1 red snapper. But boy, can you ever make it count when you do it in a bay boat like this? You have to work hard to shove 30 gallons of fuel through this boat.
All right, under the rear deck, you've got 2 wells. One's a really nice live bait well, and the other is a lot larger and could double as a release well. On these 2 wells, the live bait well is 25 gallons. The release well is 60 gallons. So if you need to carry 2 types of bait or just a whole lot of bait, let's say you're going to make an offshore trip, you've got all of the capacity you need.
Oh, you ought to see the size of some of the blue runners, the Louisiana guys, when they're fishing around the rigs. You're going to want this 60-gallon tank for that. Dave, the pad on the bottom of this boat, you told us about it, taught me about it, I didn't know. The boat runs on the pad. That improves the performance all along the scale. But you know what else it does? It's one of the very reasons for having a bay boat. It causes you to draft shallower. You've lost the last of that V, you've cut it off, and you literally can drift across the sandbar a lot easier.
When we talked about where people are transitioning into these type of boats, a lot of the guys are coming out of flats boats. So they still want to be able to get into the backcountry. They still want to be able to float across that super skinny water. You may give up a few inches of draft going from any flats boat into any bay boat, but that pad helps because 10 inches of water, I mean, face it, do you really want to fish in water shallower than 10 inches?
Well, let me tell you, there's a lot of difference between 10 inches and 14 inches in the amount of visibility that you have. So you want to get as skinny as you can, and you can get skinnier in a bay boat than you can any deep V.
Well, if you look at the entire package, they even include a hydraulic jack plate on the boat. This is just one of the things that you can tell that they understand boating, they know how to design boats, they've been in the industry for a long time. They've taken all of that knowledge into this new boat and they've really come up with a great design.
Well, forget boating, okay? I know you come from the boating world, I come from the fishing world. Fishermen designed this boat, okay? There's fishing amenities everywhere you look. 12-inch screens we talked about. Superior live wells, huge fish boxes. that comes from the fishing side of the Earl Bent's family.
It really does. And if you look at the hull, I love the fact that they gave it a pad for speed. They flared the bow for dryness. So this boat is completely redesigned for both, for the family and for the fishermen. We talked about it before in all the bay boats, but honestly, if you buy a bay boat, it's got to do a little bit of everything, and this boat can do it.
Don't go away. We'll be right back with more Florida Sportsman Best Boat. This segment brought to you by JL Audio, how we play.
50 years ago, Bennett Marine changed boating forever, inventing the trim tab, getting you on plane faster, improving fuel efficiency and performance, balancing loads. Today, more than 1 million systems later worldwide, boats all sizes. Bennett Innovation, durable and dependable trim tabs and hatch lifters. Your only source for both hydraulic and electric systems. Bennett Trim Tabs, superior by design, legendary service. Enjoy the ride.
Welcome back to Florida Sportsman Best Boat. This week, we're featuring bay boats in the 24-foot to 27-foot class.
All right, in this episode, it's only fitting that Ranger joins us. We've seen the Triton, now we have the Ranger. Everyone that watches the industry knows that these boats are now in the same camp, and they both came from Bass Boat Industries. So let's see how the Ranger has redesigned their bay boat.
They're cousins, there's no question about that, but they're different too. There's a whole lot to love on this one. Starting up here, I love the fact you can store a 9-foot fly rod over here, 10 rods below deck, never know they're there.
Well, you know, it's a lot of little things that we call out on the boats that we really like. I love the fact that they addressed mounting a trolling motor. A lot of the bay boats that we've tested over the past 2 seasons of Best Boat, it was like the trolling motor was an afterthought, or the manufacturer said, you've got to put it on the left side. Maybe you don't want it on the left side for whatever reason. Maybe you dock to that side because that's where you keep your boat on your lift and you would rather put it to the right side. This is the first bay boat that I've seen where they've addressed the issue of being able to bow mount a trolling motor. They've given you a plug, but they let you pick which side you want to mount it on.
Oh my word, think about how often you pull into a marina to spend the night. If you've got a favorite marina, it can make all the difference. You don't want that thing banging up against the dock at night. You'd much rather it be on the other side of the bow.
You know, the aft part of this casting deck, you'll like the double step. This is something we call out on every boat. I like the ability to take 2 steps to get up here, but they've got a huge insulated drink cooler and a lot of dry storage that we're standing on.
A lot of dry storage, a lot of fish box room. It's a boat that comes from offshore and does a very good job inshore. But make no mistake about it, this boat's roots are in a little bigger water than any class boat will be in.
Well, one other issue that Ranger addressed is you're going to be taking your family out in the bay boat this size. If you want to put a head on the boat, they've given you the means to do that. They've got a nice big center console. You can open up the entire front of the center console and step down in there for a head. That's something that's not optional on the other 2 boats.
Well, it's not, and married guys need heads. If your wife and your daughters are going with you, you certainly want that option. And if you're going to have a family and you're going to buy a boat like this, it's got to appeal to everybody or it doesn't appeal to anybody. I can tell you what, longtime offshore guys are going to recognize this console. You know, everything's about the experience and how it makes you feel. This just feels big boat to me.
Well, it does, and here again, we talk about what the boat's gonna be used for. So if you have a guy that's leaning more toward offshore and a little less toward inshore, this might be the right size console for him.
You're not kidding, it might be. You can put 2 14-inch screens there. I feel very secure. You can have all the electronics you want. It's just laid out nice. Here we go again, more comfortable seating, straight out of the bass boat world, you and your bass boats. But after all, it's a Ranger.
Well, yes, it is a Ranger, but they have been building offshore boats for a long, long time. And here it is in their live well that they put behind these seats. This is a real working offshore live well.
It's a big boat live well, you're right. The hatch is big enough to dump your cast net in, shake your baits out, and easy to catch that last bait. There's no crawling around trying to reach up and find the place where the last bait's hiding. You can nail them all from there.
Well, they've got the light blue interior that a lot of guys like. They've got the rounded corners. They have the volume that you're going to need. If you're going to take this boat offshore and you're going to black out that live well with greenies, you've got enough volume to keep them alive.
It's not a fashion thing, Dave. They've learned that the light blue live well keeps the water cooler. That keeps the bait fresher. They've also learned that a clear lid means you know the minute you start getting trouble water level-wise. If you get a bait stops up, you get a pump fails or something, somebody that's back here is immediately going to see, hey, wait a minute, we're losing water in the live well.
All right, if you look at the rear seating we were talking about earlier, I like the design that it's one-handed, it flips up, you can easily seat 2 people there, but it's in the middle of the boat. You're not on the outside edges because I don't care how dry your boat is, if you sit on the outside edges, you're gonna get wet.
You're gonna get wet, and here you're in the center of gravity of the boat, Dave. Cup holders and armrests. It doesn't sound like a big thing, but if you're running 40 miles to the next fishing spot, it's a very big thing.
Well, bay boats, like we talked about, they're gonna be for fishing, they're gonna be for the family. Even if they're not for the family, this is a great place to ride. Like you say, for a long ride, I'm gonna rather be sitting here than up there on the front seat of the console.
I'd rather be here than anywhere on the boat.
Well, the design of it's nice. When you lay it down, now you've got a nice, big, flat, flush rear casting deck, but it's one-handed operation. Even in rough seas, it'll be easy to open, easy to close, and it looks super, super comfortable. It's a great design for rear seating.
Tell you what, this is a little different entry than anything we've seen in the 24 to 26 bay boats. This boat screams offshore boat at you. Now, what Ranger's done is they've brought in so many of the features of an offshore boat, the big live well, big fish boxes, a lot of rod lockers, a big console. This boat just screams ocean to you, and yet it'll draft in 10 inches of water. The Ranger 2510, a very serious offshore boat that can come inshore when it needs to.
Don't go away. We'll be right back with more Florida Sportsman Best Boat. This segment brought to you by Yamaha. Reliability starts here.
Yamaha's next generation V6 4-strokes are changing the game.
Mid-range power was awesome.
Fuel, the burn, it's unbelievable.
Couldn't believe the speed and the fuel economy is pretty impressive.
I mean, I couldn't believe the power. It was like it was more like doing a quarter mile on a drag strip.
And them things are like, it's a whole nother game. So I made the switch.
Experience the difference for yourself during the Yamaha Discover V6 Offshore Demo Tour. See why we call it the game changer.
When filming for Florida Sportsman Best Boat, the cast and crew stayed at Pirates Cove Resort and Marina in Stuart, Florida. Family owned and operated, featuring 50 renovated rooms with an outstanding restaurant and a full-service 50-slip marina. Welcome back to Florida Sportsman Best Boat. This week, we're featuring bay boats in the 24-foot to 27-foot class.
All right, this is the Blue Wave 2400 Pure Bay, and they've really done a good job of getting a great balance between an offshore boat and an inshore flats boat, creating this 24-foot bay boat.
This one defines bay boat. This one is designed for the bay. Now, doesn't mean you can't take it across an awful lot of open water, but where it really speaks to me is fishing inside, on the flats, in the channels, and still being able to dash offshore for a while.
Well, if you look at their front deck here, we've looked at the decks on a lot of boats. It's got all the size you need. It's got the rod lockers you need. It definitely has the double step that we like. Makes it easier to get on and off the boat. You've got 2 insulated coolers under here. But look at this bow seating. This is something unique we haven't seen yet.
It is, and it's for the family. Once again, not only do we have plenty of fish box storage up here, we can store 10 rods up to 9 feet long below the deck. Now here's why that's important, Dave. These, of course, are lockable. So many boat companies make the mistake of building these gunnel rod lockers like we've got in here, but they put a door on them and make them lockable. The problem with that is the reels don't fit in. What good do rod lockers do you unless the reels go in too?
Well, it just goes into the thought they put into the design of this boat. Like their console, you've got 3 different options for their center console. All right, this particular center console, they've eliminated the live well that is normally standard and has a molded in live well on the front seat. They've replaced it with this Yeti. So if you need a little bit of extra fish box room, this is a good alternative to doing that. If you do use it as a fish box, you can take it off and wash it up onto the dock. Because every built-in fish box in a boat, you've got to get on your hands and knees and clean it out. Everyone's design is the same. With this, you can actually remove the fish box, bring it up on the dock, just easier to clean.
It is. Now your fish you can take home in your pocket. But for the rest of us, having the extra ability to carry that much ice or extra fish box room is important.
They also have one more design, which lets you put a head inside this console. All right, let's take a look at this center console from a driver and passenger perspective. Okay, I love this flat mount dash. All your electronics are flush, but they kept the switches, something I really like to see on all the boats.
I like the size of the console. I like the fact you can pass back and forth easily. 2 guys going by at one side. I like the padding up here to keep your cell phone and stuff from sliding off. There's a lot to like about this.
Well, the one thing that'll stand out when you get to operate this boat are these Cyclone seats. The most comfortable seats that I've sat in any bay boat that we've tested. Not only that, they swivel, they'll move up and back, but you can turn them sideways and you can actually sit in the seat with your feet on the gunnel. Let's say we're going to bottom fish and you really want a nice comfortable place to sit down under the shade of the T-top, you can do it in these seats.
Well, you can, and you know, the first time I saw colored T-tops, I thought the world had lost its mind. Now I fully understand how much cooler or how much less glare you get from a blue top like this than you do off either a white or a black top.
Last thing I'll say about these seats, Here again, you're going to use a bay boat for the family. If you're going to tow a water toy, this seat can spin 180 degrees, so you can be driving the boat and your passenger can still be in contact with you, but he's watching the guy being towed behind the boat. It is so important.
Forget all that. There's this sport called fishing, okay? And when real men fish, they quite often troll. This guy never has to take his eyes off the baits. He can be turned around while you're looking for frigate birds ahead.
Well, there again, you can use the boat both ways. This is the beauty of a bay boat. You can go in the ocean, you can go in the flats, you can take the family. If you need one boat that can do it all, that's what a bay boat is all about. All right, you're going to be using this boat for fishing, and especially if you're going to get into the tournament series, whether it's bass or the redfish tour, you need a nice big release well.
Let me tell you what I learned about these big release wells, Dave. The Blue Wave Louisiana tournament anglers, they often have to bring 5 27-inch redfish to the scale. You better handle a live well that big if you're going to handle that many fish and keep them alive.
Well, it can pull double duty too, because Blue Wave does have an option where you can put an actual live well here, a stand-up live well like we've seen in other boats. But let's say you want to keep the Cyclone seats, you could black this out with greenies and have more baits than you could possibly use in a day.
And keep your fish alive on the way to the weigh-in.
Well, to round out the rest of the rear deck, you've got flip-up stern seating, super comfortable with fold-down armrest. You've got additional storage on both sides, and you've got super great access to your systems. Here again, like we've said, on all the boats that have this, the easier you get to your systems, the better you're going to maintain your boat.
Well, let me tell you what the crown jewel is, the finishing touch on this boat, if you will. I love that stern ladder. That's easy in, easy out, easy running without it accidentally deploying.
So what Blue Wave has done, they've taken a 2,200-pound hull and they've stuffed in offshore, inshore, taken the family, taken out your divers. You've got one boat that can really do a little bit of everything.
Clear the inlet at first light with the speed to beat the fleet out to a weed line and troll for dolphin. On the way back in, stop at the reef and drop baits for grouper and snapper. Back at the inlet, flip a jig to the jetties to see if the snook are holding there. Before heading back to the dock, drift the grass flats and try to pick up a trout or a redfish. You'd be hard-pressed to find another boat that can adapt to changing conditions and locations as well as a bay boat can, and may be the best boat for you.
All right, we've shown you 3 boats that can go catch sailfish offshore, come inside, catch snook and redfish on the flats, and go freshwater and catch bass.
There's got to be a reason why so many boat builders are gravitating toward this 24 to 26-foot bay boat range. They're very versatile. You'll want to see all 6 of them because in there somewhere may be the best boat for you.
Stay tuned next week. We have 3 more bay boats coming, but if you want more information, go to our website, floridasportsman.com, click on the boating page, and go to the Best Boat link.
Or we'll see you next week on another edition of Florida Sportsman Best Boat.
Be sure to join us next week as we cover part 2 of our series on 24 to 27-foot bay boats on Florida Sportsman Best Boat. Each month, turn to Florida Sportsman for the best in boating and fishing coverage.